Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, the place where we talk about life, endurance, persistence, perspective, and so much more. I'm Joe Rinaldi, and I'll be your host. Let's jump in. Before we get started, let me share a quote with you. The great Les Brown once said, "You can't see the picture when you're in the frame." If you've felt stuck in your fitness, mindset, or life as a whole, head down to the link in the show notes and reach out to learn more about Project Endure Coaching so that we can help you step outside of the frame and bridge the gap between who you are now and who you want to be. We can't wait to hear from you. Now, let's get to the episode. Welcome back to the Project Endure podcast, episode 184. We have myself, Joe Rinaldi, and in Miami, Florida, we have a very, very special guest, Juan Bendana. Juan, how are you, man?
Joe, I'm doing good. Good, man. Happy to be here. Very good.
I'm so happy to have you here. We were just talking before we hit record that we've had some back and forth and some reschedules on both ends, and great things are worth the wait. And I believe that this is going to be a great conversation. And so with that being said, before we dive in, I usually give the guest a chance to introduce themselves to the audience as if the people listening have never heard of who you are. So I'll let you take it away.
For sure. I would say my almost origin story is really this kid that was a self-conscious Canadian kid that didn't really believe in their ability to do the things that they wanted to do. And for years, I had let who I thought other people saw me as determine who I was and how I acted. And then basically, I reached a point in my life, this was around when I was like 19, 20 years old, when I was like, I feel like I want to help people and encourage people to find in them what they can't see in themselves.
Mm.
So then I started speaking in high schools and colleges, and that turned into working with educators and parents. And then I was kind of thrusted into doing these conferences with like thousands of people. And I was like, wait, I'm not that kind of person. Like I can't do that sort of thing. And then that led to some organizations sort of taking notice, and then basically, long story short, signed a deal with Sony Pictures for a partnership in launching one of their movies, and that led to doing other partnerships with other organizations. And now, fast forward almost a decade, I now help people, organizations, leaders, teams find the most confident version of themselves and inspire confidence in others. And that really was started from that kid that had no confidence, that figured out, oh, there's actually a system, there's a blueprint, there's a framework in order to build confidence. And now over the past 3 years have been working on the book and the body of work that comes out literally this year, which I'm so excited about. But that has been sort of my passion project, because I think whenever it comes to personal growth or leadership, the answer is confidence. The answer is not more effective communication. The answer isn't how to, like, it's just believing in yourself a little more. That's what it is. So yeah, and that's where we are today. So now, I the technical term is keynote speaker. That is what I do. And people are like, "Oh, you're a motivational speaker." Like, I go into companies like this year, it's been, Lindt Chocolate, RBC, Fidelity, Nationwide, Allstate, Remax, and just go not only encourage their people to find confidence, but also give them the tools and strategies to do that same thing. And now I'm living in Florida and loving it. I can actually say that on a podcast like this because we were going through the process, and now it is official. And yeah, here with my wife Gabby and our dog Brody, and just loving every minute of it.
Man, there is so much that I want to unpack together related to confidence and beyond. Before we get into that, I have a question for you. Uh, I've seen your content pop up in different places. One of those places is YouTube, I believe. When did you start your journey on YouTube?
That was honestly, it was like a few years ago where I needed to start posting videos of me speaking because that's how people bring you in. That's how you build that business. And then I just consistently, any events that I can get recorded, that I'm allowed to get recorded, I will like post little snippets and clips and whatnot on there from keynotes and from speeches. But yeah. So I'd say like a few years.
Yeah, the reason I ask, and I hadn't told you this before we hit record, but back in 2020, 2019, 2020, in that time frame, I had this hunch that I wanted to leave the full-time job that I was just entering into and really do my own thing, become an entrepreneur, just go for it. And one of the things that I dabbled with was YouTube. I'd set up the tripod in my 600 square foot apartment at the time and get up at 4 a.m. before anybody else was up. So it was nice and quiet. And I'd film videos and I'd post them. And you actually popped up on my YouTube feed. And I remember watching a handful of your videos and thinking, wow, this guy's really well spoken. He knows what he's doing. He's putting out awesome content. And then, just life gets busy and kind of fell off the feed. And I wasn't on YouTube a whole lot. But it's so cool for this to come full circle on my end to have this conversation because I recognize you and I remember you from 4 or 5 years ago, whenever that was.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
Small world. It's crazy.
it is. It's a smaller world when you put yourself out there. I've learned when you take action and you go for things, you realize
For
the
sure.
world gets a lot smaller. Um,
Yeah.
and so, with that being said, we'll talk about confidence throughout this podcast, but I'll start with the first big question that I ask every guest. And you didn't have these questions beforehand, so feel free to take a second, think about it, because it's a big one.
Yeah.
When you look back at your life so far, what's the hardest thing that you've ever had to handle that you did not get to choose for yourself?
Ooh, that I didn't get to choose for myself. Uh, I would say going right into the deep end, I would say it was the journey of losing weight.
Hmm.
Here's what I mean. Is that, and here's why I think I didn't necessarily choose it for myself, even though I felt like I did in part, but there was another part where the addiction to food I felt like chose me.
Mm,
And it felt like it didn't feel like it was actually in my control at all. And I had years where I felt like that was something that was determined
mm,
for my life. That was something that, and I was always the overweight kid. I was always this kid that had the extra 20 pounds, 25 pounds. Like I was always that kid that wouldn't take their shirt off at the pool party. Like that was always me. And I realized, and the shift was really understanding that, oh, that actually is a choice that I made and making and either will continue to make if I don't change something. So
mm,
I remember being, reaching that sort of turning point. And when I was 75 pounds overweight, um, obese, and was always tired,
mm,
was always exhausted. And I was like, I need to change something because no one is coming. No one is coming to the rescue. No one is going to change my life for me. And that was the single biggest change I feel like that changed everything for
mm,
my relationships, my income, my happiness, my everything.
mm,
That was the biggest change. So I would say that would be that would be the one for
mm.
sure.
So, first, looking at you now having this conversation, I would have never guessed that you were overweight, which is just an interesting side point that you
Mhm.
can't judge a book by its cover. And you also don't know someone's story just from interacting with them on the surface. So, good reminder
For
for
sure.
everyone. But two, it's interesting because you say you realize in hindsight you were making a choice, but in a way it also chose you. And I want to dive into that a little bit because there are people listening to this all over the world who are struggling with an addiction. They might have, labeled it as an addiction. They might recognize, they might have the awareness, or maybe they're in denial and they don't realize that this thing has a grip on them. But when you first recognized that you didn't have full control over the choices you were making, there you're kind of sucked in by the food that you were consuming. What was the first step to start of work your way out of that?
I think the first step for anyone that is experiencing any variance of addiction is awareness that you have the problem. Like you can, if you're sitting there and you have a garden and there's weeds in the garden, you can't sit there and be like, there's no weeds, there's no weeds. I've got the garden. Like you can't do that. Like you have to bring awareness to like, I actually have something that is calling the shots and not me.
Mm,
So I had that with food. And then what's interesting is that after I lost all the weight, that manifested in alcohol because I thought that I was like, I fixed the food thing. And it's like, oh, addiction often finds another mechanism. It finds another source. So I always tell people whether it's because I think putting labels on things is so ridiculous. Like you shouldn't feel bad about the fact that you're addicted to something and that something is has control of you, but that doesn't mean that's who you are.
mm,
Like don't put a label on yourself. Just say like that I'm acknowledging the fact that yeah, I was addicted to food.
mm,
Then I was addicted to alcohol. And then what was wildly helpful was I just chose a better addiction.
mm,
I got addicted to fitness. I got addicted to health. I got addicted to growing, to getting better. I got addicted like those. Yeah, I think there are healthy addictions. I am addicted to working hard. I am addicted to going to the gym. Like I love it. And yeah, it's great because there's some addictions, things that you really viscerally enjoy that are beneficial to your life. They don't actually take away from your life. So I would say the first step is awareness of like, oh, this is something that's controlling me. I don't like that. I got to get back in the driver's seat.
mm. I love that answer, and this is something that I've been reflecting on for me, but I'll share here on the podcast. It's somewhat fresh, but I was having a conversation with a group of clients the other week, and the topic of OCD came up. Right, just the general topic, and I thought back to childhood, and I definitely had some OCD tendencies. I went through a season where I'd have to wash my hands every time I touched something.
Mhm.
I would flick on and off the lights a handful of times before I went to bed. There were these things that I didn't recognize back then, but I can see now were OCD tendencies. And someone was asking, how do you stay on top of everything? Because I do a lot, I work hard, I'm organized, structured, much like yourself. And it kind of clicked for me. I don't think that I have gotten rid of any of that obsessive compulsiveness. I think it's just channeled into a different vehicle, right? I see something on my calendar, I do it. I have a checkbox to check, I check it. There's work to be done, I do it. And there's part of me that can't help but want to do those things. I, like you, also have, if you want to call it an addictive personality or, extreme tendencies. And I've recognized that I channel them into good things, that's fitness, work, etc. And so if somebody has that awareness and they want to make that change, do you have any advice or guidance for someone who now has the awareness but doesn't know how to make the change?
Mhm. Absolutely. I will share my probably favorite quote of all time, which is from my favorite franchise of all time, which is the Marvel Universe. And one of the 23 movies is in Doctor Strange, as the Ancient One says, that we never get rid of our demons, we learn to live above them.
Ooh, that's good.
You never get rid of your demons. You learn to live above them. Like with the OCD, like with the addiction, you don't get rid of those things. You learn to live above them. I have to this day. I will have tendencies and moments. I had binge eating disorder.
Mhm.
I have moments where I can feel that there. I don't judge, bring awareness to it. Don't judge yourself for it or for it coming back, and then decide to live above it. If there were any three steps, those would be the three steps. It'd be bring awareness to it. Then Decide to not judge yourself for it and then decide to live above it. Because most people, they do something or they mess up or they sleep in or they have a thought, and then that's not even the problem. The problem is that they beat themselves up for the thought. They beat themselves up for not doing the work. They beat themselves up for sleeping in. It wasn't the fact that you slept until 8, it's that you beat yourself up for the entire morning about the fact that you did. So then, instead of beating yourself up, just decide to live above it. So if you're addicted to food, or if you're addicted to overworking, or if you're addicted, if there's a debilitating addiction or challenge or habit that you run into, decide to live above it and do things that are outside of that thing. So like, and whether it's extra, if you have the tendency or the habit of being sedentary and being in depressive states, get your ass to the gym. Go for a walk outside. Here's the challenge that most people run into. They act based on the way that they feel, not based on the goals that they have. You have to stop acting based on the way that you feel. If you're tired, okay, and so are the single moms raising 3 kids. You have no problems. Like, if you're exhausted, okay, I get it. Fine. And your point, would you like an award? Would you like a trophy? Like a little participation ribbon? Like, if you fight for the reasons why you're tired, you get to keep them. If you fight for the challenges that you have, you get to keep them. And so many people fight for their problems because problems are things that we connect over, that they never choose the better option. You're going to be tired. You got to do it tired. You're going to be scared. You got to do it scared. You're going to be nervous. Sometimes you got to do it nervous. Like, just have a tendency towards and lean towards action, as opposed to getting in your head as to why you can't do the thing or why it's not working. Like, you just got to do it anyways and be the override switch in your life.
One of my favorite quotes is from Dale Carnegie, who said, "Inaction breeds doubt and fear. Action breeds confidence and courage. If you want to conquer fear, don't sit home and think about it. Go out and get busy."
Mhm.
And I'm curious for you, if we were to dive in here to the confidence portion of all of this, what role does action play in building confidence?
Oh, it's everything. Confidence requires proof, proof of capacity. Like, literally, according to the research, confidence without proof of capacity is delusion.
Huh.
So if you don't have a reason to feel confident, meaning, let's do a black and white example. That comes up often. Public speaking. 76% of the population has glossophobia, which is the fear of public speaking. Why? Because it's the anticipation of a negative outcome. They don't think it's going to go well. They think they're going to be judged. They think they're not going to be effective. So then what do? We avoid it and we don't do it at all. Or we try and minimize it and then we don't get in front of people. We don't speak. So instead of that, the approach that one should take in building confidence in any area of our lives is, what is the area I want to build confidence in? Let me go give myself an undeniable amount of proof in that area, in that category, so that I can look back on all of the evidence as to why I should feel confident in this thing. I just think people don't give themselves enough proof. It's like, I don't feel confident speaking. How many times have you spoken in front of a group? 5. Okay. What do you expect? What do you expect? People are like, how do you feel so confident in front of people? I'm like, I didn't the first 100 times, but after giving 700 or so keynotes, I feel a little bit confident about my ability to speak in front of groups just because I've done it so many times. The first time I went to the gym, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea how to use any of the machines. I didn't know anything. Literally did not know how to do anything. True story. I did a box jump. I like nicked my toe because it was the box was too high, and I like scraped my shin like bad, like really bleeding everywhere. This whole thing, it was horrible. But now going to the gym, I have more confidence to step into the gym because I kind of know what I'm doing now. I've learned. So I think people just need to give themselves more proof.
Yeah,
Like simple as that.
I agree with that. And the other part of all of this, and I'm curious where this fits in your mind, is I see, talk to, and have experienced being afraid of what other people think.
Mhm.
Going out, you want to do this new thing, you want to go off the beaten path, you want to make this change that maybe is not, you know, accepted by your current group of friends. And to do that requires some courage. It requires you to put yourself out there and to be willing to be misunderstood, to be okay with the fact that other people might think things. But I think at
Mhm.
the end of the day, in order to build true confidence, we have to, in some way, shape, or form, get over that or get through that. So I'm curious how confidence interacts with what we think other people think about us.
Yes. The reality is we're living in a world where all of us experience something called the spotlight effect. It's a phenomenon in psychology where we think people are thinking of us all of the time or have a spotlight on us. So naturally, we people please because we don't want to disappoint. But what that does is it ties our confidence to external validation, which makes it very easy to tear down, or it kind of makes life feel like it's an audition. So I think instead of spending so much of our time caring about what other people think, we should change that to focusing on caring about what we think of us. Not what other people think of us, but what we think of us, because our here's the truth. We will never outperform our self-image. If you want to change the results you get in anything, you need to change the way that you see yourself because our self image and our view of ourselves is so distorted. And if we were to just see ourselves the way that other people see us, we'd probably not be so hard on ourselves, first of all, because people are not thinking of you, they're thinking about themselves. And the reality is, if we were to talk to other people the way that we talk to ourselves, we'd probably have no friends. We're horrible to ourselves. We are our own worst critics. So you need to not focus on what other people are saying about you. You actually need to focus on what you are saying about you because that's the problem. We have 12 to 60,000 thoughts a day. 80% of them are negative. 80%, 95% repeated from the day before. Our brain's negativity bias oftentimes is about us. Oh, if you do that, you'll probably fail. Ah, no, they're not going to like you. Or you start that business, it's never going to work. You can, no, you're not that personality type. You can never do that. So we need to build a better relationship with ourselves. We really do. We got to be our own biggest fan. We got to be our own biggest supporter. Because you like hype everyone else up, you got to hype yourself up. Be your own raving fan. I think that's what people are really missing oftentimes.
So I'll share a quote that goes hand in hand with what you just said, and then I have a question. So the quote is from Henry David Thoreau, who said, "As a single footstep will not make a path on the earth, so as a single thought will not make a pathway in the mind. To make a deep physical path, we walk again and again. To make a deep mental path, we must think over and over the kind of thoughts we wish to dominate our lives." How would you encourage someone to change the way they think, to improve their self talk? Because I think a lot of people would hear what you just said, they would listen to that quote and they would think, that's great. Okay, now what? Because these pathways are so ingrained with the negative thoughts, and so on and so forth. So, what would you say to that?
I'd say that sort of tying back to the piece on proof,
Mm.
you have to give yourself a reason to believe in yourself. Meaning, you can't just sit there and say, I'm so healthy, I'm in such great shape, I'm an absolute gladiator, I have all, like, you can't just sit there and then eat a bag of Doritos and sit on the couch. You just can't do that. You have to. You are required to do the things that a healthy person would do. So I always say, here's the easiest yet most actionable thing you could do. Start acting like the person you want to be in the future now. Start acting like the person you want to be in the future now. If you want to start earning $50,000 a month, what does someone that earns 50,000 a month do consistently? What time do they wake up? Who do they talk to? Who are their friends? Where do they eat dinner? What are they doing differently that you're not doing? So I think it's having, again, an over index on what are the actions that I'm taking every single day that give me undeniable proof that I am the person that I would like to be. Because do I believe in the power of affirmations? Yes, but affirmations need to be aligned with action. You can't just say, I'm a confident speaker, I'm a confident speaker, and then not go do the work. You can't just say, I'm a six-figure earner, I'm a six-figure earner, abundance feeds. Like, you can't just say that and not do the work. So I think, like, replace that voice in your head. Yes, speak kindly to yourself and tell yourself, like, I'll wake up in the morning, I will say, today is going to be an extraordinary day. Today, oh my gosh, opportunities are gonna. Here's one. If you're in business, if you're an entrepreneur, use this. Say this. Honestly, it works. I've been doing it for a few months now, and it worked. Uh, is saying opportunities flood my inbox every single day. That, like, and then that happens. And it's like, it's great. So, like, I do believe, have great, like, say great things to yourself, about your situation, about what you want to do, but also once you do, follow it up with the work.
Yeah. Yeah, it all comes back to action. And, the motto of Project Endure is do hard things. And I think there's a lot of value in taking action, stretching ourselves, pushing toward limits. And the next question that I'll pose to you on is about hard things in your life. But instead of the hard things that chose you, I would love to hear about what's the hardest thing that you've ever done on purpose, and how has that impacted your confidence?
Oh, good question. I would say the hardest thing, I aside from because jumped straight to the like overcoming the binge eating disorder and losing the weight. That was probably one of the hardest things for sure. Uh, but I would say building a career out of seemingly nothing. I was that kid that in school, I was not a good student at all. I had horrible grades. I failed most classes.
Hmm.
I was lazy. I was unmotivated, and that led me to not have very many opportunities in college. So I went to a community college and I dropped out after 2 years and I moved back in with my parents, tried to build this speaking thing and just try to build this dream. And I didn't think there was part of me that thought I maybe could pull this off, and then part of me that didn't. And I remember I was like, okay, because my brother and sister went to college, like went to great schools, and they went on that path. And my dad would tell me like, you need to go to school to be successful, like Hispanic household, like that's the way. And all my cousins and everyone in my family, my extended family, they all went to school, they all did the thing and I didn't. And that journey of a 10-year journey of building that where now people see the the deal with Penguin, they see the working with, they see the business, they see all the result in the end. But I think that was probably the hardest thing. Like I remember in being in Toronto, moving into the city with like $600 in my bank account, Canadian, which is like $20 US, by the way. Especially now with the tariffs. And I remember like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make it work. I have no idea if I'm gonna be able to make it work. And I am grateful to say like now I have the confidence that I have been able to make it work and am making it work, which I just feel so blessed like in this industry. I literally my mantra is kind of like I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be here because I like out earned every possible imagination that I could have had as a kid, as like when I was that kid that was 20, 21, 22 years old. And yeah, it's just crazy. It is just crazy. So yeah, I would say that was the hardest thing for sure.
So it makes me think of another quote. This is another all time favorite. If people are listening to this podcast and you've listened for a while, you've heard me say this dozens of times, I'm sure. But it's from Friedrich Nietzsche. I always mispronounce his name, and
Dude, I have no idea yeah, still
I,
to this day.
I don't
No
know
idea.
what's correct. Anyway, Friedrich. he said, those who dance are considered insane by those who can't hear the music. And I think when anyone has a dream, right? Have you,
Fire.
right?
You got to send me that. Please make a note to send me that. That's so good.
Easy. Yes, I will. But when you have a dream or you have a vision or you have this thing that you're pursuing, but the people around you in your life, they can't see it, right? They can't feel it the way that you can. And I think a lot of times, and I can speak from personal experience, I went to graduate school, got a doctorate degree. 2 years in, I decided to quit that job and pursue my business full time. And, there are people in my life who are a bit older and a bit more traditional and didn't understand. And out of love and care, that misunderstanding or that non-understanding kind of came across as, oh, they don't believe in me. And that can be a really hard thing to grapple with. I'm curious how you dealt with being able to hear the music you were dancing to while other people around you might not have heard it.
Yeah, great question. Fire quote. Uh, Honestly, I was blessed enough to have both. I had people in my life like my mom who believed in me from day one. She's like, whatever you do, you're going to be successful. She never had a doubt. Like my wife Gabby, who like literally believed in me more than I believed in myself at times. And she's like, I knew this. Like when we signed the deal with Penguin, like it was a major deal that I should not have. Like it was crazy. Like as one of the youngest authors to sign, she was like, I'm not surprised. Like I knew this, I knew it was all gonna happen. And then doing like working with like American Express and Disney and US Bank, like she's like, yeah. Like so I had those people in my life that like believed in me more than I believed in myself. And then the rest of the people that were like, that's so ridiculous. Why don't you go get a real job? Like you're not going to school, like you're gonna drop out. Do you not want to have a future? Like, do you not want to get a good job? And I had friends that told me it was ridiculous. I had mentors that told me I would never make it work.
Mm,
I had people in my life that told me they were like, you have to be like an Olympian to speak, right?
mm,
Like you got to be somebody to speak, and like you could go like to go to school and get like a job that pays you like 70 80 grand. Like that's something like you could actually do. And then when I have like now people always will compare they will always look at the highlight reel and think it just magically appeared, and they don't see the behind the scenes that it took to get there. So now people will be, well, those same people will message me on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook and say, "Hey, I see you working with all these Fortune 100 companies, all this. Like, how do you do it? I want to build a business out of speaking. I want to do that." And I'm like, remember that conversation we had 7 8 years ago? That's where it started. So if you want to do this now, you got to do that then. Like, you have to put in the reps in order to, regardless of what people say, and regardless of what people do, I don't teacher, Miss H, my English teacher, that told me writing is a gift you're born with and you just weren't. You can't even communicate well. I suggest you not go into a career that requires you to communicate. And I've told that story to audiences of, 10 to 10,000 people in stadiums. And people are like, but how'd you just decide to keep on going? And I think the mindset is really this idea of let's find out.
mm,
Like, I don't think we know what we're capable of, so let's go and find out. And I think that, people often ask, especially with the book, they're like, are you going to send Miss H a copy of the book? And I'm like, I don't know, but if I do, I'm going to send it with a thank you, because if she had been the teacher I wanted, I don't think I'd be the person I am today. Like, limits are honestly lessons. And the people that doubt you and the people that like haters, honestly, are just confused supporters
ooh. Say that
that
again.
haven't haters are just confused supporters that haven't figured out how this story ends,
Mm.
how this thing pans out. They have no idea. So then when they find out, they're like, oh, they were just confused. They were literally just confused. Like, oh, I get it now. That makes sense.
That's good. Something that you had written and posted on social media, I had pulled up before our conversation, and it fits in well here. But you wrote, every barrier is a doorway in disguise. Instead of seeing problems as limitations, start seeing problems as opportunities. Step through the door. What you find will surprise you. And it's a simple message. It's a beautiful message. And I think it's easier to read or to say than to do. And so if
Mhm.
somebody is teetering on the edge right now, they're like, okay, I think I could do it. I think I should go for it, whatever that is in their life. And they're on the fence. What would you say to them to push them over the edge so that they step through the door?
I would say have a reason that's bigger than your initial desire that will pull you through the door, not even out of your own doing. Like I tell I have a friend that was like asking me, he's like, how do you never like relax and like just why you never stop? Do you never get tired? I'm like, no, because I have a reason to keep going. People think it's a motivation problem. The root word of motivation is motivus, which means a moving cause.
Mm.
It's a purpose. It's a reason. The reason why people aren't motivated is because they don't have motive. If I were to tell you, hey, you have to wake up at 5 a.m. every day, and if you don't, your whole family dies. Are you gonna get up for the alarm? Maybe, maybe. And I tell him kind of like tongue in cheek, I'll say, like, I wish you were a single mom. I wish you had a kid because you'd have a reason outside of your own selfish desires to make money. You'd have a reason that was bigger than yourself, and you wouldn't need anything else to feel motivated. You just get it done. So I think instead of looking for the motivation to step through the door, find the thing that's going to pull you through the door, which is a reason bigger than yourself.
So good. By the way, if that proposition was put in front of me, where 5 a.m. wake up or your whole family is gone, I'm up anyway at 3, 4 in the morning, so that's not a problem. But I don't think I would go to sleep the night before, right? Like if right, I wouldn't even risk it. I would stay up all night. I would work so hard, right? So that's a great example. Now, this is the Project Endure podcast, and I love the concept of endurance. And so I ask this to every guest, and I think it fits in well here. When you hear the word endurance, what does that mean to you?
Pushing past the point where most people quit.
Mm.
Most people. I don't know if you've seen that sort of visual graphic with the guy that's like hammering in the like cave, and then there's like all the diamonds and the gold, and it's like right there, and he's like, oh, I guess there's nothing here.
Mm.
That is the epitome of what I believe to be endurance, because I honestly think for the most part, we are stopping short of like 80% of our potential.
Mm.
We're really, if you're someone that runs, if you go on a 5K run, I promise you can do 10. Promise. Promise. And like to give you this sort of example, I grew up, especially with like the weight loss journey, I could never run. And I had specialists and doctors because when I'd run, I'd have this pain in my side, like sharp pain that felt like knives going into my side. And I was told that I had this condition that when I would run, I should stop, wait till I felt comfortable, and then keep running. And then like that was years. I believe that story. And then recently I was like, because I've been, now trained 7 days a week and like do strength training and some cardio training. Like I was like, I should maybe try running. So then my sister and a few friends and I did a challenge where I was run 2 miles a day for 30 days. And I was like, yeah, I think I can do that. Let me try it without running. I bought shoes for it. Like, to give you an idea, I literally bought shoes. I ran the 2 miles a day and it was for 30 days. It was fine. And then I was like, I feel like I could do 3 miles. Did 3 miles. And I was like, I think I could do five. And then I did 5 miles. And then I was like, yeah, but 5 miles like 7K. I feel like I could do a 10K. I did a 10K the next day. Then a week later, I was on a 10K run. I was like, I'm feeling pretty good. I was like, and then I literally on like with ChatGPT, I was like, how long is a half marathon? And it was like 26, 23 kilometers, whatever it was, 21.5 kilometers. I was like, okay, let me like feel that out. And I just ran a half that day without any running experience, without like 60 days prior, had never run a substantial distance in my life. And then now I just like, I'll run a 10K typically like every other day. but I had to break through that ceiling of what I thought was possible and endure something where I felt like I should probably stop. I should maybe quit. I should maybe listen to the experts. This is not professional medical advice. Please, if you have a condition, don't run until you black out. But what I'm saying is that we have so much more in the tank than we think. And if we just tapped into a fraction of that potential, we would literally blow ourselves away.
Mhm.
We really would.
Last fall, there was this event. It was 24 hours running up and down the Art Museum steps here in Philadelphia, which is, for anybody listening, it's the steps Rocky runs up and throws his hands up in the
Mhm.
air. And so, I trained for that event. I've run multiple marathon distances in my life, ran 30 miles once, but that was the furthest I'd ever moved in one stretch of time. And all the way up to the stairs. That's the furthest I ever gone. And on the stairs, up and down elevation, I did almost 75 miles. And it wasn't because I had trained my body 75 miles before. I'd never even come close to that. It was just a determination to let's find out, and I'll keep putting one foot in front of the other. And I think it's just there's so many examples of that, right? You have them, I have them, people listening, I'm sure have them, even though they don't realize maybe in this moment. But again, it goes back to proof. It goes back to action. It goes back to doing hard things and pushing limits. And I really strongly believe, like you do, that confidence comes through action. And so, if anybody can take anything away from this conversation so far, I think it's just go do the thing, go do something, start there.
100%.
Yeah.
It's like so often the answer to the question we're asking is action. So often the answer isn't the hack, isn't ketosis, isn't a new email funnel, isn't a new ETF, isn't a new altcoin. It's doing the work. That's what it is. Like, that's what it comes down to. And the important piece is figuring out what work you need to do. Because if you run east chasing sunset, you're going to be running for a whole long time. If you say, I want to get in great shape and I'm going to go to the gym once every 2 weeks, I am sorry, you're not going to get any sort of measurable results. You're
Yeah.
not. So you got to do the right action too. I think that's really important. Where people are like, oh, just take action, take action. Well, what is like actually break that down? If I want to increase my income, okay, how are you increasing the value that you add? What action are you taking? Like, what are you actually doing? If I want to lose weight, okay, do I need to be in a caloric deficit? What caloric deficit do I need to be in? Well, if I want to make more friends, okay, how many new people do I need to say hi to? Where could I find those people? What events could I go to? Like, you got to get tactical about your action because people are just kind of like, oh, I got to take action. And that isn't, you got to be a little more specific than that in order for it to be really effective, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would also say that I think general direction is enough to get started. We might
Yes.
not need the specific destination because I see so many people who get caught up in, I don't know what the best single action to take is, or I don't know what the perfect path is. And the truth
Yes.
is, action creates clarity. And so if you're in the general ballpark of the direction you want to move,
Yep.
you can fine tune it as you go. So anybody who's listening, I'd say find the direction and then start taking action there.
Totally agree.
Yeah. So,
Totally agree.
all right, with that, I have one final big question for you. And
Ooh,
this is my favorite question because it's somewhat open-ended and it really just allows you, the guest, to say whatever you want. And
love it.
so there are people listening to this who are going through hard things. They're hurting. They might feel stuck. They're not sure where to go or what to do. It might just be a dark season of life. If you could say anything you want to those people who are just not sure what to do next, where to go, how to feel, etc., what would you say to them?
Good question. I'd honestly say to not be so hard on yourself and that the dark time or the valley or the struggle is actually the part of the movie that people like. And it's the part of the movie that makes the superhero connect to the audience. It's the part of the movie that we all remember. So don't try and rush through the pain, the discomfort, the uncertainty that I don't know if this is going to work, because that's the story that builds you into the person that you want to be. I feel like people try and run to the success, not understanding and completely forgetting the fact that the pain and the endurance and the struggle is the win. That is the part of the story that you need to lean into. So I think if more people embraced the challenge, embrace the struggle, embrace the chapter where they are, and not say that I'm on chapter 2, but I already want to be on chapter 20, like having the patience to say, I'm okay with and I'm gonna make it through this time, and then also having a vision for the future of I'm gonna move towards something every day, even if it's just a step, even if it's just reading 10 pages of a book, even if it's listening to a podcast on a walk, just to turn my day around. Like I'm gonna do something to get better.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do something to grow.
So I'll throw one more quote out there to piggyback off of that. Haruki Murakami once said, "And once the storm is over, you won't remember how you made it through, how you've managed to survive. You won't even be sure whether the storm is really over. But one thing is certain: when you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person who walked in."
Bring out all the quotes. You gotta send me like I want like a hit list of these. Yeah, it's the struggle is what makes the person.
Yeah.
It is what makes the performer. It's what makes the success. That is the part that if people can just say, I'm going to endure more. I'm going to go through the challenge and I'm going to get excited about challenge, changes things,
Yeah.
completely changes things.
Yeah. And so, with all that being said, Juan, if people want to find out more about what you do, grab a copy of the book, connect with you in any way, shape, or form, where's the best place for people to do those things?
Yeah, I would say two places. Number one is Instagram. That's probably where I hang out the most. Juan, Juan, Bandana, Bendana. Or LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I also hang out a lot. If you want to grab a copy of the book, it's available everywhere for pre-order right now. I don't know when this episode is airing, but the book launches August 5th. It's called Confident by Choice. You can type that into Amazon or in Target, Barnes and Noble, a bunch of places. So if you want to pick up that will be shipped August 5th of this year, 2025. And yeah, anything you need, send me a message, Instagram, LinkedIn, that's where I hang out the most. And yeah.
Amazing. Well, I know this conversation was really impactful for me, and I know it was for the people listening as well. And I just want to thank you, Juan, for this and for the way you show up in this world and all that you do.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Project Indoor podcast, go ahead and subscribe, leave a review on your platform of choice, and share this episode with a friend. It helps us get more conversations like this out to more people like you. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. And one more thing. If you're looking for a community of people all striving to be better together, check out the Project Indoor Hard Things Club. The link is in the description below. We'd love to have you.